My son smiled too wide when he said, "You have to try the gravy, Mom." That's when the air around my plate changed. It wasn't anything obvious. No villain music, no lightning flash. Just that stretched, shiny grin on his face. Like someone had pulled the corners of his mouth too far. His fingers hovered near the edge of my plate. Not quite touching, like he was waiting for something to happen. Ethan never watched my food. Thanksgiving, Christmas, Easter, he'd always acted like I was part of the furniture. Move around me, talk over me, toss the occasional "Hey, Mom" into the room like a crumpled napkin and call it respect. But this year he leaned in, syrupy sweet, eyes bright. "I made this one just for you," he said. "You'll love it. Promise." I didn't answer. I just looked down at the gravy. Dark, glossy, dripping slowly over my slice of turkey like melted chocolate over cake. The smell was right. The color was right. It should have been harmless. Then my gaze slid sideways to his wife. Lauren sat to my right, laughing too loudly at something the youngest nephew said, hand resting proudly on her untouched plate. Not a smear of gravy on her turkey. Not a dip in her mashed potatoes. Her glass of wine was half empty, but her dinner looked like a display. I don't know what made my hand move. Maybe it was instinct. Maybe it was the hundreds of small things I'd brushed off. The way Ethan and Lauren went silent when I walked into a room. The quick text messages exchanged when I mentioned my house. The way Lauren always chimed in with, "Well, when you can't live alone anymore," as if we were all just waiting for me to forget my own name. Whatever it was, my fingers went very calm and very steady. While Lauren threw her head back at some joke, I took my fork, slid it under my turkey, lifted the entire portion of meat smothered in gravy, and set it down on her plate. Then I moved her plain turkey onto mine. No one noticed. No one except Ethan. He froze for less than a second. The smile slipped, the tiniest drop, like a loose thread giving way. His hand twitched. "Wait, no, Mom," he said too fast. That one's yours." I'd already stabbed a forkful of her mashed potatoes and brought them to my mouth. They were good. Smooth, buttery, safe. I said pleasantly. "Nice texture." His jaw flexed once. Lauren didn't even look. 10 minutes later, Lauren pressed a hand to her stomach. "Ugh," she groaned, laughing it off at first. "I think I ate too fast." 20 minutes later, her laugh was gone. Her face had gone pale, slick with sweat. She huddled over in her chair, breath coming short and sharp. "Something's wrong," she whispered, one hand clawing at the tablecloth. "My stomach, Ethan, something's wrong." At 30 minutes, someone finally shouted, "Call 911." Kids cried. Chairs scraped. My sister-in-law rushed to open the door for the paramedics. Everyone moved in panicked circles. I sat very still at the long dining table. Hands wrapped around a mug of coffee that had gone cold long before the sirens filled the quiet suburban street. No one asked how I was. No one mentioned that Lauren had eaten from my original plate. No one thought to say, "Wait, wasn't that Kate's serving?" The paramedics lifted Lauren onto the stretcher, asking questions about allergies, medications, blood pressure. She could barely answer, her voice thin and shaking. Her eyes rolled toward me once, wild and glassy. "It was the gravy," she rasped. I looked at Ethan. He looked at me. We did not blink. I hadn't so much as burped. No itching, no dizzy spell, no tightening in my throat. And I was the queen of allergic reactions. Nuts, shellfish, certain dyes, even strange preservatives, my body liked to throw fits over the smallest things. At 69, I had turned reading labels into an Olympic sport. But the gravy that had sent Lauren to the edge of collapse had done nothing to me, and if that gravy had originally been for me, what exactly had my son intended? After the ambulance left and relatives spilled out into the night, some following to the hospital, some driving home with excuses and half-hearted hugs, I stayed. Of course I stayed. I cleared plates. Rinsed serving dishes. Folded cloth napkins with hands that didn't tremble once. The house, still warm from the oven, hummed with leftover heat and the faint smell of cinnamon, turkey, and panic. The gravy boat sat abandoned at the end of the table. There wasn't much left. Maybe 2 or 3 spoonfuls. Enough. I poured it carefully into a mason jar. Lauren had labeled soup with her neat little handwriting and stuck it behind the cranberry sauce in their fridge. Then I washed the gravy boat twice and set it on the drying rack. Only then did I sit down at the kitchen table, lights off, coat still on, listening to the furnace click and the wind move outside. Something in me had shifted. It wasn't fear. Fear makes your heart hammer and your hands shake. This was quieter, heavier, like the world had just tilted a degree to the left and finally revealed what it had always really looked like. For years, I'd let myself be handled. Smiled at. Patted on the shoulder. You're such a trooper, Mom. We're so glad you're still here. Just sit, we'll take care of it, you relax. They said they loved having me there. They also talked around me like I was background noise. Like I was a painting on the wall they hadn't gotten around to taking down. Tonight, I'd watched Ethan watch my plate. And I understood. I did not sleep that night. Not out of worry for Lauren, though I did wonder if she would be okay. But because my mind kept replaying the entire evening frame by frame. Ethan's too bright smile. His fingers hovering. His insistence. The way his face had gone slack when I switched the plates. The way he never once asked, Mom, are you feeling all right, when Lauren went down. By 2:17 a.m. I was back in my own kitchen, the old yellow lamp above the sink casting a small circle of light over the worn wooden table. In front of me sat a notebook I hadn't opened since my husband, Tom, died. I wasn't writing. I was just turning pages. Keeping my hands busy so my thoughts didn't rip through me. At 2:38, my phone lit up. From Ethan. Still at the hospital. They think it's an allergic reaction. She's stable. I'll keep you posted. No, thanks for staying to clean up, Mom. No, how are you feeling? No, love you. Just a clinical bulletin, like he was sending it to a distant cousin he barely knew. I didn't reply. At 3:05, I opened my refrigerator and took out the mason jar I'd brought home from their house, tucked safe in my tote bag under a Tupperware of leftover carrots. The gravy looked fine. It smelled fine. I unscrewed the lid and poured a little onto a small plate. Then I leaned closer. There, tiny dark flecks, not quite pepper, not quite herbs. Something else. I took a toothpick, fished one out, held it up to the yellow light. Too small to be sure of anything. But my gut knew. I washed the jar out slowly, scrubbing until the glass squeaked beneath my fingers, then put it beside the sink to dry. Tomorrow, I told myself, I would call a doctor, not because I was sick. But because I wanted medical words, medical records, something with a letterhead and a signature that said, "This is not nothing." The next morning at 11, my phone rang. I snatched it up, expecting Ethan. "Mama," a quiet voice whispered. "Mia," I said, my granddaughter's name softening everything inside me. "What's wrong, sweetheart?" She was 17, with Lauren's wide brown eyes and my stubborn jaw. A good kid. Too observant for her own comfort. "Grandma," she said, voice shaking. "I think I need to tell you something, but I'm scared you'll be mad at me." "You won't make me mad," I said. "Tell me." She exhaled shakily. "Yesterday, before dinner, I saw Dad in the kitchen with the gravy. He had this little glass bottle. Like a dropper. He was squeezing something into the pot. When I walked in, he jumped. He shoved it into his pocket and said he was just adding seasoning, but," her voice thinned. "I don't think it was seasoning." My throat went dry. "Did anyone else see?" I asked. "No," Mia whispered. "Mom was upstairs. Aunt Carla was in the living room. It was just me." He told me to go set the table. He sounded weird. You did the right thing telling me, I said. Grandma, she whispered, I keep thinking, what if you'd eaten it? We were both quiet for a long moment. You let me worry about that, I said finally. For now, don't say anything to your parents about this conversation. Not yet. Can you do that? Yes, she whispered. Are you okay? I looked around my silent kitchen. The ticking clock on the wall. The pile of unpaid bills. The framed photo of Ethan at age 6 in a blue sweater I'd knit myself. The woman in the photo holding his shoulders from behind, smiling as if the future were a simple, beautiful thing. I will be, I said. Thank you, Mia. You're braver than you know. After we hung up, I walked straight to the small filing cabinet in the corner of my living room, the one nobody ever thought held anything important. I pulled open the bottom drawer, pushed aside a stack of old warranty papers, and pulled out a large, thick envelope. Ethan had given it to me last spring. Just hospital stuff, Mom, he'd said casually, sliding it across my kitchen table. Power of attorney, you know? So if anything ever happens and you can't answer a doctor, I can talk for you. Nothing big. Just a precaution. I hadn't read it carefully. I'd trusted him. He was my boy, my miracle child after 2 miscarriages that nearly shattered me. I'd nursed him through croup, measles, heartache, and unemployment. I'd co-signed on his first car. Paid off his student loan. Helped with the down payment for his house. Of course I signed. Now, hands steady. I opened the envelope. The legal language was dense, thick as molasses. But the important parts stood out like warning signs. General durable power of attorney. Full authority over financial accounts. Real estate. Property. Health decisions. Placement in facilities. Triggered upon determination of mental incapacity. My signature blurred for a second as my eyes stung, then sharpened again. If I'd gone to the hospital confused, disoriented, sick from something no one could quite pinpoint, if some doctor, harried and overworked, had signed a form saying possible cognitive impairment, Ethan would have had the keys to everything. My house. My savings. My decisions. My life. I sat very still. It wasn't panic that washed through me. It was resolve. Cold. Clear. Clean. I picked up the phone and dialed a number I hadn't called since Tom's funeral. Law Office of Hale and Price, the receptionist answered. How may I direct your call? This is Kate Lovell, I said. Please tell Mr. Hale I need him to review a document for me immediately. And I'd like to change my power of attorney today. Not next week. Today. There was a pause, the soft clicking of keys. He can see you in an hour, Mrs. Lovell, she said. I'll be there in 45 minutes, I replied, already reaching for my coat. Because some storms didn't arrive with thunder. Some came disguised as family dinners and signature lines. Robert Hale had been our family lawyer for 32 years. He'd helped Tom and me buy our first condo, draft our first will, revise it when Ethan was born, revise it again when we buried Tom. He was sharp, calm, with gray at his temples and the perpetual look of a man watching for landmines other people pretended weren't there. When I stepped into his office, he was already in the hallway waiting for me, tie slightly loosened, glasses in hand. Kate, he said, voice low. Come in. I handed him the envelope. He read the first page slowly, then the second, then the third. His brow furrowed deeper with each passing line. Did you understand this when you signed it? He asked finally. No, I said flatly. My son told me it was for hospital conversations. Nothing more. He lifted the final page and tapped the paragraph at the bottom. This gives him the right to move you into a care facility of his choosing, he said quietly. Sell your house. Liquidate your accounts. Access every asset you own if someone, anyone, declares you unfit. I didn't react. The shock had already come and gone in my kitchen. Do I seem unfit to you? I asked. He leaned back, studying me. You drove yourself here? He asked. Yes. Have you gotten lost driving lately? No. Can you tell me today's date? I did. He smirked slightly. And the capital of France? Robert, I said dryly. He chuckled once and shook his head. You're fine, Kate. More than fine. Would you like to revoke this power of attorney? Immediately, I said. And I want a new one naming my granddaughter Mia as my agent. Effective when I say so, not just when someone else decides I'm broken. His eyebrows lifted. Not Ethan? He asked gently. Not Ethan, I replied. He nodded once. More firmly this time. We'll draft a new power. And Kate? He tapped the old document. We'll do more than that. Given what you've just told me on the phone, we should talk about a trust. And about protecting your estate. I smiled, but there was no warmth in it. I'd very much like to talk about that, I said. We spent the next hour going line by line through new paperwork. I made him read every clause aloud. I asked him to explain every sentence I didn't like in plain English. He didn't rush me. When it came time to sign, my hand was steady, my spine straight. By the time I stepped back onto the cold November sidewalk, my shoulders felt lighter. Not safe. But armed. Back home, the house felt different. It was the same old two-story place Ethan had grown up in. Same faded curtains. Same creaky step on the stairs. Same photographs lining the hallway. But now, instead of seeing memories, I saw leverage. I filled the kettle and, while the water heated, pulled my household ledger from the kitchen drawer. I'd always kept one. Not because I was stingy but because I'd been poor young, and the habit of knowing where every dollar went never left me. I flipped through the last 2 years. $1,800, help Ethan with property taxes. $3,000, Lauren's dental surgery, emergency. $900, Mia's laptop for school. The only one that didn't make my jaw clench. $12,000, garage repairs for Ethan, contractor never finished, Ethan to remodel himself. He never did. Each number was a small cut. Every of course, dear. I'd said to Ethan over the years sat next to a figure in black ink. I ran my thumb down the page, closed the book gently, and placed it on the table in front of me. At 5:22 p.m. my phone lit up. Ethan. I watched it ring until it went dark. He did not leave a voicemail. 5 minutes later, a text. Mom, what's going on with the bank? They're saying my authorization is blocked. We need to talk. Tonight. I set the phone face down. At 7:41, my phone rang again. Mia? I answered. Her voice was thin. Grandma. I think Mom and Dad are planning something. What kind of something? They've been talking about you a lot. When you're not there. She swallowed. They keep saying you're getting confused. That you're paranoid. That maybe it's time you went somewhere safer. A care home. The words didn't need to be spoken. Thank you for telling me, I said. I don't think you're confused, she blurted. I think you're the only one paying attention. I closed my eyes. I see things clearly now, I said quietly. And I'm very proud of you. Do you want me to come over? She asked. No, sweetheart, I said. Just keep listening. And don't let them make you doubt what you've seen with your own eyes. After we hung up, I turned off all the lights and stood at my front window, looking out at the quiet street. Porch lights flicked on here and there. A dog barked down the block. The world looked exactly the same. I didn't. They weren't going to quietly move me out of my own story. They'd forgotten who they were dealing with. I'd survived a loveless childhood, 2 miscarriages, a husband's sudden death, a mortgage crisis, and a broken hip. I was not going to be undone by a bowl of gravy. The next morning, my bones woke me up before dawn, like they always did. At nearly 70, your joints become your alarm clock. I shuffled to the kitchen, made coffee, and pulled a smaller notebook from a drawer beneath the phone. My rainy day book. Inside were old notes, receipts, scraps of conversations I'd scribbled down over the years because something about them had bothered me. Tom used to call it my little conspiracy file. He'd laughed, but I'd kept writing. I flipped through. There, 3 years ago. Ethan asking me to sign a city form for his garage permit because it was technically in my name. I'd helped. 2 years ago, an email he'd printed out for me. Something about temporary investment account access. I'd signed that too. A Christmas card from Lauren with an extra sheet tucked in, joint expenses approved by Kate, with a list of reimbursements that looked suspiciously like my generosity retroactively labeled as obligation. I pulled those pages out and laid them carefully on the table. Patterns. That's what I needed. By 10, I was at the bank. The manager, Mr. Cho, a man in his 40s with kind eyes and a serious tie, greeted me in his little office with an apologetic smile. I'd like a full printout of the last 12 months of my account activity. I told him, and I want to know what authorizations you have on file. He clicked through screens while I watched his reflection in the glass. There are a few recurring transfers, he said slowly. Automatic ones, $1,500 on the 3rd of each month to a joint account under the name E. Lovell and L. Lovell. It's labeled Home Maintenance Support. It was set up using the valid power of attorney we received in March. I smiled. It did not reach my eyes. Cancel it, I said. Effective immediately. And note in my file that the power of attorney is revoked. My lawyer will send the new document today. He cleared his throat. Of course, he said. And Kate, would you like to restrict future changes to this account? Yes, I said. No changes by phone or online. Only in person. Only with me sitting across from you looking you in the eye. He nodded. Understood. I walked out with 12 months of statements in a thick envelope. When I got home, I read every line. Grocery stores. Utility bills. Donations I remembered making. And then things I did not. A $300 charge to a photography studio I'd never set foot in. A $2,500 cash withdrawal I definitely hadn't made. The cuts were no longer small. They were gashes. I stared out at the bare maple tree in my front yard and made another decision. This was not going to be family drama. This was theft. And I was going to treat it as such. 2 mornings later. Robert Hale poured coffee into a chipped mug in his office and looked at the stack of documents I'd brought like I'd set down a loaded gun. This is more than sloppy ethics, he said. This is financial exploitation. I don't care what you call it, I said. I care that it stops. It will, he said. Let's take away every tool they think they have. He recommended an irrevocable trust. We'll put your house into it. Your accounts. The safe deposit box. Everything, he said. You appoint a trustee, someone you trust, and from that moment on, nobody touches anything without their say-so. And it survives you. Even if someone tries to claim you're incompetent later, your wishes stand. Can my trustee be Mia? I asked. One day, yes, he said. She's still 17. For now, we'll appoint a professional co-trustee. When she turns 18, we can adjust. Then do it, I said. Today. He drafted the documents. I read every word. I signed. I'd spent my whole life signing papers other people handed me. These were mine. When we were done, I pulled a thinner envelope from my purse. My old will, I said. I want it replaced. And I want a clause in the new one that says anyone who challenges my mental capacity or contests the trust, even once, is cut out. Completely. He stared at me for a beat, then nodded. That's called a no contest clause, he said. I'll make it sharp. Good, I replied. So am I. The calls came faster now. Ethan. Then Lauren. Then Ethan again. I watched each one ring without answering. By the third day, there was a voicemail. Mom, what the hell? Ethan's voice crackled, thin with anger he was trying to hide. The bank won't talk to me. They said there were changes to your accounts. Why didn't you tell me? Are you okay? Call me. I didn't. Instead, I baked a pan of Mia's favorite brownies and called her. Come over, I said. I have something for you. She arrived half an hour later, cheeks flushed from the cold, school backpack slung over one shoulder. She was the only person left who walked into my house without bracing herself for an argument. What's going on? She asked cautiously. I handed her a folder. She opened it, skimmed the first lines, then snapped her gaze up to me. Grandma, this is a trust. With my name on it. Yes, I said. For your education, your future, whatever life you choose. It's locked. Your parents have no authority over it. Only you and the trustee. Her eyes filled with tears. Why are you doing this? She whispered. Because you told the truth when it was dangerous, I said. Because you called me when you could have stayed quiet. Because you are the one person in this family who has not treated me like a problem to solve. She pressed her lips together as her shoulders shook. I don't want to take your money, she choked. You're not taking anything, I said. I'm giving it. To the right person this time. She set the folder down carefully and threw her arms around me, clinging like she hadn't since she was 8 and her parents had their first big fight. For the first time in years, giving didn't feel like bleeding out. It felt like reclaiming. The showdown came sooner than I expected. That evening. As Frank Sinatra hummed softly from my old record player and I folded laundry on the couch, my phone lit up. Ethan. I let it ring 3 times, then answered. Hi, Ethan, I said. Why did you revoke the power of attorney? He demanded without greeting. The bank says I can't access anything. The transfers are blocked. Mom, what is this? I rescinded it, I said. You did that without talking to me? His voice climbed an octave. Are you kidding? After everything I do for you. What exactly do you do for me? I asked calmly. Silence. You're not thinking clearly, he said. You're letting paranoia get in your head. This is what we were worried about. This is why you tried to lace my food? I asked. The line went dead quiet. That's insane, he snapped. You really think I'd try to hurt you? I think you poured something into that gravy, I said. Mia saw you. I think you counted on me getting just sick enough. Confused enough. Weak enough. To sign things. To be declared unfit. To hand you my life with a legal bow. Mom, listen to yourself, he said through gritted teeth. Do you hear how crazy you sound? Mia is a kid. She misunderstands things. You're letting her. I've spoken with my lawyer, I cut in. The accounts are in a trust. You are not on any of them. I've documented the changes. I've documented the past. And Ethan? What? He hissed. If anything happens to me, I said softly, if I so much as trip on my own rug and hit my head, I've left instructions for the police on exactly who to talk to first. And guess what? It won't be the cat. You wouldn't, he breathed. I already did, I said. The sound of his breathing thickened. Is this how you want things to end? He asked finally. With lawyers and threats and drama? I'm your son. You stopped being just my son, I said evenly, when you started circling like a vulture. I'm not ending anything. I'm protecting what's left. You're ruining this family, he snarled. I laughed once. It came out sharp and surprised. No, Ethan, I said. You did that. I'm just making sure I survive the wreckage. He hung up. I folded the last towel, turned up the music, and made myself a cup of tea with hands that didn't shake at all. Clean. That's how it felt. Not happy. Not triumphant. Just clean. The police station smelled like stale coffee and floor cleaner. The waiting room chairs were plastic and unforgiving. A baby cried somewhere behind me. A man stared at the floor. A young woman clutched a paper bag as if it were made of gold. I sat with my purse on my lap, my papers organized inside, my back straight. When the officer called my name, Ms. Lovell, I stood. He was young, dark hair, tired eyes. His name tag read Clark. We sat in a small, boxy room with buzzing fluorescent lights and a table stuck to the floor. "What can I help you with today, ma'am?" he asked. "I want to make a report," I said. "Not a formal charge." "Not yet, but I want this documented." I slid the folder over. A copy of the old power of attorney. Proof of its revocation. Bank statements with unauthorized transfers highlighted. A printed transcript of my conversation with Ethan I'd written down by memory and had Robert proofread for accuracy. "And what is the nature of the concern?" Officer Clark asked, flipping through. "Financial coercion," I said. "Possible attempted harm. My son and daughter-in-law are building a case to say I'm incompetent so they can move me and control my assets." I believe he added something to my food to push things along. I did not get sick. Someone else did. But their intentions matter. He glanced up. "Do you have any evidence of the food tampering?" "My granddaughter saw him add something to the gravy," I said. "She's willing to give a statement. I have the medical notes from my daughter-in-law's allergic reaction. And I have an attorney documenting the rest." He nodded slowly. "We take this kind of thing seriously," he said. "I can file this as a protective record. If anything else happens, if we get a welfare check request from them, for example, this will be part of the context." "Good," I said. "That's all I want for now." A trail. When I walked back out into the late afternoon, the sky was a washed-out gray. Wind cut through my coat and made my eyes water. I breathed in. It felt like stepping from a crowded room into open air. I needed backup. Not just a lawyer. Not just a paper trail. Someone who knew how people got ugly when money was on the line. So that night, after I'd made myself a simple dinner and washed the dishes, I pulled out an old address book and found a name I hadn't said out loud in 15 years. Frank Doyle. Tom's friend. A retired detective. Widower. The kind of man who saw through pleasantries like smoke. The phone rang twice. "Yeah," a gravelly voice answered. "Frank, it's Kate Lovell." There was a pause. "I'll be damned," he said. "Still giving the world hell?" "Trying," I said. "I need a favor." "You in danger?" he asked immediately. "Not yet," I said. "But I'd like to be prepared for when my son realizes the gravy didn't do its job." He was quiet for a second. "Start from the beginning," he said. "Leave nothing out." So I told him everything. The Thanksgiving dinner. The plate switch. Mia's phone call. The power of attorney. The bank. The revoked transfers. Ethan's angry calls. The police report. He listened without interrupting. "This is a pattern," he said finally. "I've seen it too many times. They don't see you as a person anymore, Kate. You're a key ring. A deed with legs. A walking signature. They'll push harder now that you said no. I want someone who's seen the worst of people to stand between me and whatever they try next," I said. "You may not be licensed anymore, but you know how this works." He exhaled. "I can't legally investigate like I used to. But I can advise. I can look into a few things. I can be a name that makes them think twice." "That's all I'm asking," I said. "Just don't pat me on the head and tell me to calm down." He laughed, a rusty sound. "I've never once told you to calm down," he said. "All right, Kate. I'm in." That night, I slept. Really slept. No tossing. No replaying voices. Just the steady hum of the heater and the soft drumming of rain against the roof. I wasn't safe. But I wasn't prey anymore either. Frank came over the next morning with a thermos of coffee and a folder. "Thought you quit caffeine," I said. "I quit cigarettes," he replied. "Don't be greedy." He spread the folder's contents on my kitchen table. Printouts from Ethan's consulting website. A list of side businesses he'd started and closed within a year. Records of 2 properties he'd mortgaged to the hilt. A note about a potential liquidation of assets. "He's drowning," I said softly. "Or about to." "That's usually when people start eyeing whatever looks solid," Frank said. "Like a paid-off house. Steady pension." He slid over another piece of paper. It was a printed email, forwarded from a contact Frank still had at a local eldercare advocacy office. From Lauren Lovell. Subject: Urgent assistance, aging parent. The message was polite. Concerned. Sweetly poisonous. She described increasing confusion, paranoia, unfounded accusations, and asked about initiating a cognitive evaluation without her consent, for her own good. My name was at the top. Frank watched my face. "She's laying the foundation," I said. "Get the authorities to come to me instead of me going to them. Make it look like they're rescuing me." "Exactly," he said. "You want me to dig deeper, talk to more people, or?" "No," I said. "I want to respond." "You want to email her back?" He frowned. "No," I said, standing. "I want to look her in the eye." I did not wait for an invitation. 2 days later, I drove my old silver sedan to their pretty gray house with its tasteful white trim and professionally trimmed hedges. The kind of house that looked like it belonged inside a holiday catalog, with a smiling family on the front steps. I rang the doorbell. Mia opened the door. Her eyes widened. "Grandma? Is your mother home?" I asked gently. She hesitated. "She's upstairs." "Tell her I'd like a word," I said. "Just her and me." 5 minutes later, Lauren appeared at the top of the stairs, wrapped in a thick cardigan, her eyes shadowed from too many late nights and not enough conscience. "Kate," she said stiffly. "We're kind of in the middle of." I held up a printed copy of her email. She froze halfway down the stairs. "I thought it would be fair to let you see the proof before I spoke," I said. "So you can't pretend you don't know what I'm talking about." Her lips parted. Color drained from her cheeks. "I was worried," she stammered. "You've been." "Don't insult me by lying right to my face," I said. "I am many things, Lauren. Old. Tired. Heartbroken. But I am not confused. And I am not blind." She glanced toward the kitchen, maybe hoping Ethan would swoop in. He didn't. "Mia, give us a minute," I said. "No," Mia said, arms crossing. "I'm staying." Lauren glared at her daughter, but she didn't argue. "Thanksgiving," I said quietly. "You ate from my plate. You went to the hospital. And the first words out of your mouth to the paramedics were, 'It was the gravy.'" Lauren's throat bobbed. Because it was. "I never got sick," I said. "I ate everything on my plate. Every year, I'm the one with the allergies. Every year, I'm the one who brings my own salad dressing just in case. But this time, the only person who reacted was the one who got my serving when your husband panicked." "Stop," Lauren whispered. "No," I said, "you don't get to tell me to stop. Not now. You signed their letters. You nodded when they called me senile. You were ready to box my life up and drop it off in a facility." "That's not true," she snapped. "We were worried." "You've been." "What? Asking too many questions about my own money?" I raised my eyebrows. "Reading things before I sign them? Blocking unauthorized transfers? Is that what paranoia looks like to you? A woman double-checking what's hers?" Mia's jaw tightened. "I won't let you erase me with polite words and legal forms," I said. "Whatever story you tell yourself about how you were helping, that's yours to live with. But hear this clearly, Lauren. I stepped closer. I am not moving. I am not handing over power of attorney. And I am not going to die as quietly as you all planned. You can't talk to me like that in my house, she hissed. I smiled, small and sharp. Watch me, I said. And remember it. I turned and walked out. On the porch, the November wind cut across my face like a slap. It woke every nerve in my skin. Mia slipped out behind me, hugging her hoodie tight. Are you okay? She asked. I am, I said. For the first time in a long time. She grabbed my hand and squeezed. I'm not choosing them over you, she whispered. I know, I said. That's why I'm still standing. The letter arrived 3 days later. Blue envelope. No return address. My name written in careful cursive. Inside was a single page, neatly typed. Mrs. Lovell, your recent behavior has caused distress and concern. Your accusations are unfounded and harmful. Should you continue spreading lies about us or attempting to disrupt our family life, we will have no choice but to pursue legal action and protective measures. Please consider the consequences of your words and actions. No signature. Cowards rarely sign their own threats. I read it twice. Then I set it on the table, made myself a cup of tea, fed the cat, and took a slow walk to the mailbox and back. Only after my heart rate settled did I call Frank. She's poking the bear, he said after I read it to him. She wants you to lose your temper. Easier to paint you as unstable if you're screaming. She won't get screaming, I said. She'll get paper. That evening, I did 2 things. First, I called a journalist. Not for a headline. Not yet. But for a record. A woman named Nora Delgado who had written a series I'd read 2 years ago about elder financial abuse in the state. She listened carefully, took notes, and said, if you ever want to go public, call me back. By then, I'll have your file ready. Second, I wrote a response to the anonymous letter. To whom it may concern, I have retained legal representation. All previous powers of attorney and authorizations granted to Ethan and Lauren Lovell have been revoked and replaced. Any further attempts to access my medical or financial information or to initiate evaluations without my consent will be treated as harassment and addressed through law enforcement and legal channels. Your intimidation does not change the facts. Regards, Kate Lovell. I mailed it certified the next morning. Let them see my signature on something they couldn't control. The quiet didn't last. It never does. 2 days later, a black SUV I didn't recognize parked across the street from my house. It sat there for 10 minutes. No one got out. Then it drove away. Later that afternoon, Mia came by, cheeks pale, hands twisting in the sleeves of her sweater. They told me I can't come here anymore, she said, voice cracking. Mom said you're toxic. Dad said you're making things up because you're lonely. Are you going to listen to them? I asked. She met my eyes. No, she said. I brought something. She pulled out her phone, tapped the screen, then slid it across the table to me. On it was an audio file. I recorded them, she whispered. After Thanksgiving. They were arguing in the kitchen. They thought I went downstairs. I pressed play. Lauren's voice, shrill and furious. It should have been her, Ethan. I told you not to mix the plates. That whole thing was supposed to make them notice she can't handle things anymore, not send me to the ER. Ethan's voice, low and panicked. I didn't know she'd switch them, okay? It was just supposed to make her sleepy, confused, long enough to get them to check her out. I stopped the recording. That's enough, I said. Mia stared at me, eyes shining with tears. I didn't know what to do, she whispered. I didn't want to ruin everything, but when they started talking about putting you in some nice place. I couldn't. You did the bravest thing in this whole mess, I said. Taking her hand. You listened. You kept proof. You told the truth. Are you going to send it to the police? She asked. Yes, I said. And to my lawyer. And to anyone else who needs to hear it. Her lip trembled. They're going to hate me, she whispered. They already hate the part of you that refuses to lie for them, I said gently. That's their problem. Not yours. We hugged. When she left, the house felt large and empty. But it also felt like mine. The knock came 2 days later. Firm. Official. When I opened the door, 2 uniformed officers stood on the porch, hats in hand. A woman in a blazer stood behind them with a clipboard. Mrs. Lovell? The female officer asked. Yes, I said. I'm Officer Bird, this is Officer Ramos, and this is Ms. Hill from Adult Protective Services, she said. We're here regarding a welfare evaluation request that was filed on your behalf. Filed by who? I asked, though I already knew. She glanced at the paper. Your son, Ethan Lovell, and his wife, Lauren. Of course. I stepped aside. Come in, I said. But my lawyer will be here in 15 minutes. We can start when he arrives. They exchanged glances. That's fine, ma'am, Ms. Hill said. We sat at my dining table, the same one covered in turkey and lies a week earlier. They looked around at the tidy room, the neat stack of books by my chair, the half-finished crossword puzzle on the sideboard. My hands were steady in my lap. When Robert arrived, he greeted each of them, sat down beside me, and placed a recording device on the table. For everyone's clarity, he said. We'll be recording this meeting. They went through their checklist. Did I know where I was? What day it was? Who the president was? Did I handle my own finances? Did I remember recent events? I answered each question calmly, in detail. When they asked about confusion, I said, occasionally I walk into a room and forget why. Like every other human being on the planet. Ms. Hill's lips twitched. When they asked about accusations, about why my son believed I was paranoid. I slid the printed transcript of the audio recording across the table and then played the clip on my phone. It should have been her. I told you not to mix the plates. The room went very still. Officer Ramos turned his head slightly, jaw shifting. Ms. Hill took a deep breath. Mrs. Lovell, she said quietly, you are clearly not cognitively impaired. As far as APS is concerned, you are not a vulnerable adult in need of guardianship. This case is closed. Wonderful, Robert said. Now note in your file that any future attempts to initiate this process without substantial new evidence will be viewed as harassment and retaliation. She nodded slowly. We'll document everything, she said. Thank you for your time. After they left, I stood at the window and watched their cars pull away. I did not feel victory. Courts and offices did not fix what my son had become. But for the first time in a long time, the ground under my feet felt solid. The county investigator's office was quieter than the police station. More carpet. Less crying. Her name was Angela Porter, mid-40s, glasses, hair pinned back tightly. She did not waste my time with condolences or small talk. We've reviewed the APS file, she said. And your attorney sent over the audio, the bank records, and the email from your daughter-in-law. If you're ready, we can take a formal statement. I'm ready, I said. So I told the story again. Thanksgiving. The plate. The hospital. The power of attorney. The hidden transfers. Mia's call. Lauren's email. The SUV parked outside. The welfare check. The recording. Angela listened, pen tapping lightly against her pad occasionally, but she didn't interrupt. At minimum, she said when I finished, we're looking at attempted financial exploitation. The audio raises the question of attempted poisoning, but that will depend on what we can prove medically. Either way, we will be opening a criminal investigation. Good, I said. I don't want revenge. I want consequences. She nodded once. Do you feel safe where you live? She asked. Yes, I said. Now I do. When I walked out into the sharp winter air, the trees were bare. The sky was that hard, bright blue that only shows up in November, like someone scrubbed it clean. I'd expected to feel old during this process, hunched and small. I didn't. I felt exact. The silence that followed was louder than any shouting match we'd ever had. No more calls from Ethan. No more texts from Lauren. No more anonymous letters. Just the ticking of my kitchen clock. The slow whirl of the ceiling fan. The occasional car passing outside. Frank called once. "The DA's office has your file," he said. "They're looking at the audio seriously. You may be called to testify, but you don't have to do anything else right now. You've done more than most people in your position ever manage." "Good," I said. "Let them carry it the rest of the way." Mia kept coming over. "Mom says I betrayed them," she said one afternoon, ripping a bagel into little pieces she didn't eat. "Dad won't talk to me. They're sending me to stay with Aunt Carla next week. They said I need distance from the drama." "I'm sorry," I said. "I'm not," she replied, blinking back tears. "I thought I'd feel guilty. I don't. I just feel sad they're exactly who I was afraid they were." "You're not responsible for their choices," I said. "Only for your own." She pulled her sketchbook from her bag. "I drew something," she said, embarrassed. "Don't laugh." The drawing was of an older woman, shoulders slightly bent but eyes fierce, half wrapped in swirling branches and leaves. Not trapped. Supported. Growing right through them. "Is that supposed to be me?" I asked, throat tight. She shrugged. "It's a tree that refuses to die just because winter came. You can call it whatever you want." I touched the edge of the paper. "It's beautiful," I said. "Like you." She leaned her head on my shoulder. "You know what my art professor said about my last assignment?" she murmured. "What?" She said, "You draw women like trees. Rooted. Weather-beaten. Still growing. Who taught you to see them that way?" "And what did you say?" I asked. She nudged me gently. "You did." The sky darkened. Porch lights flickered on up and down the street. Somewhere, a dog started barking at nothing. I looked at my granddaughter, the girl who had pressed record, who had handed me the proof I needed, who had chosen to stand with me even when it cost her. The justice system had done its part. The bank forms had been signed. The newspaper articles had been printed. Those were victories. But this living, breathing proof that I had broken the cycle instead of passing it down, that was the sweetest one. We sat there in comfortable silence, two silhouettes against the fading light, the magnolia tree in the yard rustling softly. For the first time in my life, I realized something so simple it almost made me laugh. I had not just survived my story. I had rewritten it. And no matter what came next. Aching knees. Lost keys. New fears, new joys. No one would ever again have the power to write me out.